This is The KJ Show. The KJ Show with host Dr. Katherine Johnson is a mix of breaking news and practical advice on the many ways in which the energy industry can affect you and your family. Katherine will combine energy updates and conversations with leaders in the energy efficiency community. So please welcome your host, Dr. KJ.
Hello and welcome to the KJ Show with me, Dr. Katherine Johnson, your host on my new YouTube channel. Thank you so much for tuning in and listening. Today I'm talking about something that's getting a lot of news in the news, and it should. Actually, it's a really good idea called geothermal heat pump networks, geothermal networks. And I'll talk about that because I used to be quite involved in the geothermal heat pump industry. So it's actually, I'm glad to see they're finally making some progress. And believe it or not, Donald Trump is leading the way. But I always like to start with something funny, and I have a few little, well, it's not funny so much as breaking news that you can't make up. You cannot make this stuff up. So the first thing is that there was horrible wildfires in Los Angeles, as we all are well aware, and there's even a picture I have of it. And so there's also this horribly long delay in actually helping folks get the permits they need to rebuild. And so, in addition to everything else, the California Public Utilities Commission decided that maybe we shouldn't allow gas appliances in new construction. But they also decided that there should be a moratorium or an exception provided for customers that are rebuilding their homes, which actually may end up being new construction if they're burned to the ground. So what the commission wanted to do was to sort of say you can't have any gas appliances, except SoCal Edison got an exception and was able to pay rebates to folks to put in new gas appliances because they're rebuilding their home. The January wildfires destroyed about 18,000 buildings in Los Angeles. And so, so that was horrific. And there's a lot of problems with this rebuild, in addition to the fact that, are they going to even allow people to rebuild? But now the thought is that Southern SoCal Edison is saying, well, we have rebates that have been approved. They're paid for through the energy efficiency programs that are approved by the California CPUC, my former client. And the rebates are paid for. And so if gas customers want to put in gas appliances, they should be able to. And this is something called fuel switching, where you switch from gas to electricity. It's never the other way around. And fuel switching is sometimes in some states, like where I work, Arkansas, outlawed, or the commission doesn't allow it. And in California and other states, they actually want to, like Maryland, they're encouraging it. But fuel switching is a very controversial topic and ends up costing people more money because electricity, frankly, costs more than gas. So under the current rules, the investor-owned gas utilities in California may offer ratepayer rebates to install things like, we're not even talking about big stuff. We're talking about gas fire inserts or gas patio heater or a $2,250 for a gas tankless water heater. I'm not a big fan of tankless water heaters, but gas water heaters are fairly ubiquitous. And so they're basically saying that SoCal Edison said, hey, this isn't fair. It's not fair that we should be penalized and we should lose our gas customer base just because the other utilities were complicit in burning down LA. So so basically the CPUC made a decision, changed its mind, and then decided, like most government agencies, to kick the can down the road. So it's an interesting thing. And I am not, in favor of forced electrification on anyone. I think if you want to do it, that's great. But, there's a lot of different sources of energy out there, and why can't we have all of them? But because gas uses fossil fuel, it's considered evil, even though a lot of electricity is generated through natural gas turbines. Interesting. Another interesting thing is, so we heard about the LA wildfires and the thought that it was caused by climate change when in fact it was caused by some deranged activist. Well, guess what? The hurricane season didn't quite play into the climate change narrative either. They said that it was actually, I know we had some devastating storms in North Carolina last year, but in 2025, it was actually a record notable lull. And that kind of doesn't play into the scenario at all that climate change is causing utter doom. There's another picture I have on So the 2025 Atlantic hurricane season may be best remembered by its unusual distribution of storms, including Melissa, which struck Jamaica, and that was a horrible experience, a Category 5. But the U.S. wasn't really touched much in the hurricane season. Now, according to climate change people, aren't hurricanes supposed to increase in the number and frequency, and aren't they supposed to cause all kinds of problems and not just happen to invade Caribbean islands, but also affect the United States? Apparently not. Weather's variable. Who knew? So the U.S. was less relatively unscathed. We didn't have a single major hurricane. We had tornadoes and things, but it was according to an atmospheric scientist at Colorado State University, Phil Coatsbart said that it was a strange season. This is how the storms played out. It was an odd distribution of storms and hurricanes that formed were quite strong. So it's a hurricane formed season, not what climate change. And it's the distribution of the storms, not climate change, that actually, and no one's saying, oh, climate change, no one is saying that climate change didn't cause, was contributing factor to the hurricanes because there weren't any hurricanes. So how is this working out? This is why I kind of put these stories juxtaposition each other. The wildfire, obviously horrible and devastating, but it was caused by a an unknown arsonist, not climate change. Not that you'd hear any different in the narratives. And then the hurricanes that are supposed to be getting worse every year because of climate change didn't really pan out that right. And then, of course, we have Bill Gates saying climate change isn't really that big a deal. I've been saying that for most of my career. But the U.S., it was the first time in a decade that there were no landfalling named hurricanes, and that no named storms formed in the Atlantic between August 24th and September 16th, a lull that is usually the height of the hurricane season. And so Melissa did cause between $6 and $7 billion in Jamaica, but apparently, and it also damaged Cuba and Hispaniola, but it was in the warm waters of the Caribbean, not in the United States. So of course, because it's in Jamaica, it doesn't get as much news anyway. The only named storm that even threatened land was Chantal, which was washed ashore July 6th as a tropical storm in South Carolina. So the lack of hurricane activity in the US came, as President Donald said, maybe we shouldn't have a FEMA as a national agency. Maybe we should provide the funds to the states so the states can have the immediate help they need when they have these horrible disasters. What a concept. So anyway, it just seems interested that the climate change narrative really isn't playing out the way the environmentalists want it to, when things that they think are climate change caused don't happen. And guess what? They're right. It's not climate change. I'm Dr. Katherine Johnson, your host. You're watching The KJ Show with me on my new YouTube channel, and I'll be right back.
What if there were a super tiny device that could diagnose the brain and is smaller than a single human hair? What if you could see inside the brain to help an epilepsy patient during surgery or to help the fight against Parkinson's disease? Dr. Patricia Broderick is proud to announce the Broderick Probe, a biomedical and electronic breakthrough. Imagine a probe to help with the understanding and potential cure of brain-related diseases. To learn more, listen live to the Easy Sense radio show with host Dr. Broderick. And to help support the Broderick Foundation, please go to EasySense.com and learn how, with your help, we can fight these horrific brain disorders. That's EasySense.com to learn more and help support the Broderick Foundation. Author, radio show host, and coach John M. Hawkins reveals strategies to help gain perspective, build confidence, find clarity, achieve goals. John M. Hawkins' new book, Coached to Greatness: Unlock Your Full Potential with Limitless Growth, published by iUniverse. Hawkins reveals strategies to help readers accomplish more. He believes the book can coach them to greatness. Hawkins says that the best athletes get to the top of their sport with the help of coaches, mentors, and others. He shares guidance that helps readers reflect on what motivates them, rediscover and assess their core values, philosophies, and competencies, find settings that allow them to be the most productive, and track their progress towards accomplishing goals.
Hello and welcome back to the KJ Show with me, Dr. KJ, on my new YouTube channel. And today I'm talking about something that is actually quite near and dear to my heart: geothermal heat pumps, or actually geothermal cool heating and cooling, which is a network system. So they're taking this technology that I was promoting earlier in my career, and they're actually connecting the units together to create a network. And guess what? It's clean energy. It really truly is. And it also, the reason I love geothermal heat pumps so much is because they do provide heating, cooling, and water heating, triple function. But the geothermal heat pump itself has had a hard struggle because it's a complicated installation that requires three different specialties and a coordinating utility to help. But networks are kind of the next generation up. And this is actually when you have a utility actually connect the various heat pumps together to create this grouping of units that all work together to help heat and cool buildings, usually on campuses or large plots of land. So I want to start by saying I think there's a picture of what a geothermal heat pump does, and this is basically the network. So this is the idea. The geothermal heat pumps, when I was promoting them, um, basically they're like a refrigerator. They move heat from the ground to the air, or vice versa, depending on the heating or cooling season. And if you get below 6 feet underground, the Earth's temperature is relatively constant, and so it doesn't take that much, whether it's either water or glycol, to move the liquids, basically circulate the air to either heat or cool, depending on what you want to do. So it's a fairly ingenious system. It's been around since the 1900s, and Switzerland, I think, has the largest installation of geothermal heat pumps still in use, and they were installed in the 20s. So the buildings in a geothermal network all have ground source heat pumps, which make the system efficient and allow it to be networked together, which is a brilliant idea. And this is actually an idea that we tried to do at the consortium years ago, where we'd have geothermal heat pumps be included in the new construction of, say, luxury homes. And as a home was built, the geothermal heat pump would go in, and it would actually be the heating and cooling system. And it was a whole community that had it all installed at the same time, or as the community was being built. It's a really brilliant idea. But now it's taking to the next level where because the underground temperature stays at a constant 50 to 60 degrees year round, they're basically able to move the heat from buildings, through a closed loop system. And its building draws on the stable temperature for heating and dumps the heat for cooling through the heat exchange. Um, Basically, it's a fairly elegant solution. And many states now I've decided, because the one on, trying to get one group of people to install geothermal heat pumps at a time, one at a time, is really tricky. The cooperative utilities, rural electric co-ops, were very successful because they were able to target like new construction builds. But generally, the investor-owned utilities have a harder time because there's other competition. There's air source heat pumps, there's standard, there's solar, there's renewable. There's a lot of things that compete with geothermal heat pumps because they're not cheap. But geothermal heat pumps networks offer a decarbonized means of heating and cooling, which means it uses also less electricity than air source heat pumps. And this will help lower your energy costs for the biggest part of your heating, cooling, and water heating. And it does remarkably lead to a significant savings. I used to do case studies on what customers in Minnesota saved when they switched to geothermal heat pumps, or customers in or hotels in Virginia. We did a whole bunch of case studies documenting the actual savings. And school buildings in Colorado put them in because they're not only energy efficient and long term, they have less maintenance. They're also a really cool technology for the kids to learn about, and they don't generate the same sort of air issues. They're actually cleaner because they have filters, so they don't have like pollutants going out. So and in Colorado, they bury the heat pumps in the parking lots for snow melt. So it's an interesting use, but this network is really a new idea, and I'm kind of excited. So what they've done is they have individual ground source heat pumps are actually they consume 20 to 25% less energy. I would argue more than that, and they're already energy efficient. So the network offers a way to connect the cost of the underground infrastructure, a sharing of the infrastructure costs within a community, or within a campus, building campus. So you don't have to have every single heat pump standalone. You can connect it all together, and in the long run, that is definitely more energy efficient and cost efficient too. They become more efficient as the buildings are connected, especially if the buildings have different heating and cooling needs. And a data center that generates excess heat can share the heat, here we go, with nearby homes in the network, reducing waste and energy usage for everyone. This might be an answer to those AI data centers that are popping up everywhere and everyone's worried about all the energy they're using. Can we use geothermal networks to connect to provide the power not just to the data centers, but also to the towns and the communities that their data centers are affecting? It's a thought. And by the way, Donald Trump is all in on this one. There's been some really great examples I've seen over the years about how wonderful geothermal heat pump installations have been. And one of them was Colorado Mesa University, where I used to do a lot of work with geothermal heat pumps out in Colorado. They have a full scale project since 2008. It has a geothermal loop system that provides heating and cooling to its campus, meeting 90% of its energy needs and saving over $1.5 million annually compared to conventional heating and cooling. The system continues to grow because the campus is building new buildings with $6 million in new state funding. They're going to expand the services to other municipal buildings in where Colorado State's located. And it's also going to be, I think it's in Colorado. I think it's in Durango. I think it's in not Durango, it's in Grand Junction. It's a powerful demonstration of how geothermal networks can scale effectively. I think it's a really elegant way to think. Eversource, which is a utility in Massachusetts, is actually doing a 24-month pilot with using geothermal networks. And this is the first utility-owned geothermal network project in the United States. And this is something, if I were a utility executive, I'd be wanting to look into. They're serving 125 customers, 24 residential and 5 commercial buildings with 3 boreholes. So they're serving all those customers with 3 boreholes, which is not very many. They're located on a municipally owned property and they're all connected. This project has gained widespread attention, no surprise, and support because it's the first utility owned geothermal network. And its early success is due to support from the Utility Commission and also a focus on low income households and collaboration with local advocates. And this is actually a way that I think the whole issue of providing heating and cooling to low income housing has been a challenge for the utilities forever. And so could we put in geothermal heat pumps and connect them in multifamily buildings rather than trying to do it individually with air conditioners and heat pumps or a big boiler? I mean, a geothermal heat pump would make a lot more sense and can be scaled to serve those needs. And guess what? It's cheaper in the long run. And it's, of course, from an energy point of view, it's considered clean energy because they're not using electricity. If they're using the earth to heat and cool, and they're using water to move it around. They're using electricity, not using natural gas. Anyway, I'll have more on this topic because it's getting a lot of attention in the news. I'm Dr. Katherine Johnson. You're watching The KJ Show on my new YouTube channel, and I'll be right back.
Did you know that your beliefs create your entire reality, but it's the subconscious beliefs that do most of the creating? Belief shifter and life coach Shiraz can help you identify those limiting beliefs and eliminate them, often in a single session.
Like, it was almost instant. Like, I had relief right away.
Creating better health, relationships, careers, and finances. Let Shiraz help you step out of safety and into awareness.
Definitely something's happening. It's like a flow inside. Yeah, it feels good.
Whether in person or online, Shiraz provides personal coaching, belief shifting. Visit Shiraz at energeticmagic.com or call 416-529-7429. Energetic Magic. Find your greater happiness. Be well. Be aware. Be magical.
Are you struggling to care for elderly parents or a spouse? Do you wonder if being a caregiver is making you sick? Are you worried about taking time off work to care for elderly parents and balance work, life, and caregiving? Has caregiving become exhausting and emotionally draining? Are you an aging adult who wants to remain independent, but you're not sure how? I'm Pamela D. Wilson. Join me for the Caring Generation radio show for caregivers and aging adults, Wednesday evenings, 6 Pacific, 7 Mountain, 8 Central, and 9 Eastern, where I answer these questions and share tips for managing stress, family relationships, health, well-being, and more. Podcasts and transcripts of The Caring Generation are on my website, PamelaDWilson.com, plus my caregiving library, online caregiver support programs, and programs for corporations interested in supporting working caregivers. Help, hope, and support for caregivers is here on The Caring Generation and PamelaDWilson.com.
Hello and welcome back to the KJ Show with me, Dr. Katherine Johnson, on my new YouTube channel. Thank you so much for tuning in. And today I'm talking about a really exciting development in the world of clean energy, something I wholeheartedly endorse. Geothermal networks. We're actually connecting individual geothermal heat units together, which lowers the cost of the installation and allows a very complicated installation to meet a lot of needs, both commercial and residential. So guess what? A rare win for renewable energy. Donald Trump actually funded the geothermal network expansion. Yeah, so much for his thoughts that he didn't like clean energy. He likes clean energy that makes sense. Geothermal heat pumps make sense. Renewable solar, not so much. So the U.S. Department of Energy approved an $8.6 million grant that will allow Eversource, the Massachusetts utility, to actually double its network. So Eversource came up with an idea, and they are partnering with a low-income group, a group that serves low-income households called HEAT. And this is the gas and electric utility. Eversource completed the first phase, what I was talked about in Massachusetts in 2024, and they just got another $8.6 million to double the network because it's working so well. Something that's working so well is going to get government funding under the Trump administration. It was part of the One Big Beautiful Bill that the Republicans passed and signed in July that also, in fairness, phases out tax credits for wind, solar, and electric vehicles. But the bill left geothermal heating and cooling tax credits approved through 2020, it largely intact. They didn't touch them because geothermal works. The reorg of the United States of the Department of Energy now, they have eliminated the Office of Energy Efficiency and Renewable, and I'm now but they have still included geothermal, and they're now calling it Hydrocarbons and Geothermal Energy Office. Well, that makes more sense. And frankly, the geothermal has not ever gotten the same amount of subsidies that solar did, but it has a much better success rate than solar ever has. So the fact that geothermal is on the administration's agenda is pretty impactful, according to Nikki Bruno, who is the vice president for thermal solutions for Eversource, the person who's basically leading this initiative in the utility. It means they believe in it. And this is true. It's a bipartisan technology. I would contend that all energy efficient equipment should be bipartisan. And finally, we have some money going to a technology that works and saves money and helps provide heating and cooling and water heating at reduced costs. I mean, finally, someone is paying attention to what I've been saying 30 years. The federal government will allow Eversource, the money, to build another 140 new customers to bring them on. And these are low-income customers, by the way, and fund research to monitor the performance, which as an evaluator, I think is absolutely perfect. The federal funding was announced in December 24, but it finally got announced in Trump because it was after the end of Biden's thing. And it wasn't really finalized until September 30th. The agreement allows for the construction to move forward as the Trump administration is basically saying, we're not going to divert money. We're not going to spend billions of dollars on solar and wind and EVs, but we will spend money on geothermal networks. The award is an opportunity and a responsibility to clearly demonstrate the growth potential of geothermal network technologies, which I think is amazing. So the existing system provides heating and cooling for like 140 customers. The network basically uses, like I said, they tap into the net. They install these through boreholes. They dig in. They install the geothermal heat pumps. They link them up, and they distribute heat and cooling to the buildings as needed. There's also a network of pipes that basically links all of these together. By harnessing the natural heat from the earth, according to the mayor of Framingham, by harnessing the natural heat from the earth, which is a form of solar energy, by the way, we are taking a significant step towards increasing our energy independence and promoting abundant local energy sources. Couldn't have said it better myself. And that's true. And one of the problems I had when I was working with a consortium for energy, it was Geothermal Heat Pump Consortium back in the 90s, was that Solar got all the attention, but we were arguing that we never got on the solar side. For some reason, our lobbyists weren't, geothermal lobbyists weren't as effective as solar lobbyists, but technically geothermal is a solar technology because it's using the earth that's heated by the sun, right? But anyway, but now maybe it's better it didn't turn out that way, because now we can actually see how geothermal heat pumps are better than other types of solar technologies. Trump said in an executive order on his first day of office that there was an energy emergency, which I totally agree with, and that he wanted to support for a limited mix of energy resources, including fossil fuels, nuclear power, biofuels, hydropower, and geothermal energy. I'm not a big fan of biofuels, but pretty good idea. And we already see the resurgence of nuclear. I talked about that a couple shows ago. And so this is actually a cohesive strategy that might actually avoid future wars, because we go to war over oil, and also quiet some of the environmentalists who are concerned about the use of fossil fuels. No, it works. It's just an amazing technology. The plan will expansion will call double Framingham's network capability at half the cost of the initial, because the infrastructure is already there, and it comes from using the existing equipment. So once the infrastructure is in place, you can kind of do it like a Lego system and add more and more and more, and it's not as expensive as you continue to add. The costs decline because the fixed costs are already there. Once you drill a hole, you don't have to drill another one for a while. And and once you get the networks connected and the pipes working, then it's not that hard to lay more pipes and lay more and expand the network. We've already got all the pumping and control infrastructure installed, but we don't need to build a new pump house, said Eric Bonsworth, who's basically the geothermal expert who used to be in charge of the Eversource project. He said basically that we have everything in framing working working with it. And so the infrastructure's in place, the fixed costs are done. So now they can expand it on a reasonable rate. And the network efficiency is anticipated to increase as it grows, requiring fewer boreholes to expand due to different heating and cooling needs of individual buildings, and increasing how they balance each other out as it grows. The project still waits approval from regulators, but they're hoping to start construction in the end of 26. And what the heat executive director said, what we're witnessing is the birth of a new utility. Geothermal networks could help us address energy security, affordability, and so many other challenges. Why did it take all these years? And the Department of Energy, in all fairness, was supporting the Geothermal Heat Pump Consortium for many years, but we didn't get a lot of traction in there. Why in the world did it take now? I was working on this in the 90s. Why did it take until 30 years later for it to finally come to fruition? Because we finally understand that energy is a complicated process, and we need all kinds of energy technologies. And the other thing we understand is that we really need to have a cohesive, organized policy, not just picking and choosing winners on one technology or another. So geothermal heat pumps, geothermal networks, I'm all in favor of. I'm Dr. Katherine Johnson. You're watching the KJ Show with me, Dr. Katherine Johnson, or Dr. KJ, and I'll be right back with more.
Mike Zorek, a three-time California state champion in Greco-Roman wrestling at 114 pounds. Mike, blind since birth, was born in Hartford, Connecticut. He was a six-time national placer, including 2 seconds, 2/3, and 2/4. He also won the Veterans Folk-Style Wrestling twice at 152 pounds. In all these tournaments, he was the only blind competitor. Nancy Zorek, a creative spirit whose talents have taken her to the stage and into galleries and exhibitions in several states. Her father, a commercial artist who shared his instruments with his daughter and helped her fine-tune her natural abilities, influenced her decision to follow in his footsteps. Ms. Zorek has enjoyed a fruitful career doing what she loves. Listen Saturday mornings at 12 Eastern for the Nancy and Mike Show for heartwarming stories and interesting talk.
Master of words, powerful player. What life-changing words can Dr. Janet Smith Warfield pull out of her magical toolbox that just might mysteriously open a door you never knew was there? A door to free yourself from fear forever. Transform your rage into right action. Release your guilt. Position you into a life of freedom, purpose, passion, power, and peace, all quite suddenly, unexpectedly, and almost miraculously, with no effort on your part. Join Dr. Janet on Dancing with Words, Dancing with Wisdom, as she and her guests show you how words map our experiences, immersing you in a sound bath that relaxes your muscles, opens your mind, and supports you in co-creating your extraordinary life.
And welcome back to the KJ Show. I'm Dr. Katherine Johnson, your host on my new YouTube channel. Thank you so much for listening and tuning in. Today, I'm talking about a really exciting new idea called geothermal networks. But I also wanted to kind of, in my energy talk, where I talk about other crazy ideas, I wanted to sort of show that not every new technology actually makes sense. And I wrote about this in my Substack a few weeks ago, which you can get on my website, johnsonconsults.com, and you can sign up and subscribe for free. But my Substack basically talked about don't let the sun come down on me, because these people, they're crazy. They want to block the sun. As my son, my oldest son points out, that's a movie plot like Snowpiercer. Blocking the sun is actually something they want to do. And the scary part is it's not science fiction, it's true. There's private startups that are going around raising money to do solar geoengineering. Basically, they want to dim the sun as a way to cool the planet. So if the sun's too hot, so if we dim it, then it'll be better. What? The Washington Post, of all spaces, actually wrote a story about these new startups that are starting, and are they, another, pyramid scheme, or are they actually legitimate? I think that they're just wackos. But they invites people. This one is called Make Sunsets. Invites people to invest $1 in its strategy of releasing balloons filled with carbon dioxide into the stratosphere. And Stardust raised over $75 million, hopes that it'll be ready for another plan. This one and another, Just Security, looks at the risks of having private firms take the lead in sort of altering our environment, which has apparently, this field has absolutely no regulation. There's apparently nothing wrong with people releasing balloons of carbon dioxide into the stratosphere. I would be concerned on a number of levels, but not to mention the fact that there's pollution up there now you're causing with these balloons. Supporters argue that private companies can move faster than the government or universities. That's true, but if it's unregulated, is that a good idea? I don't think so. They also said they stop, they give up, but there's also the people who invest in traditional investor-owned companies, or investment-oriented companies. If things don't work, they give up, which is what the venture capitalist and Stardust investor says. They stop, they give up. But critics worry that the private companies will change weather patterns and trigger a slew of unintended and possibly catastrophic consequences. You think when you start messing with Mother Nature, there's not going to be some fallout? I mean, this is ridiculous. And that's been the whole argument of climate change, is that man's been messing with Mother Nature and the climate's, in peril, which we now find out isn't true. But when humans start monkeying around with weather and trying to fix it, this is out of science fiction. But this other guy, this one guy who's the founder of Alliance for Just Deliberation on Solar Geoenergy, where do they come up with these titles? Says he doesn't trust the private sector to make good decisions for people, and the whole move fast and break things ethos hasn't gone particularly well for society. Maybe. I mean, it depends on what we're talking about. If we're talking about building a better car, sure, I disagree with him. But if we're talking about putting ways to alter the environment, whether it's chemicals or water vapor, one of the other ideas that I talk about in my Substack article is they actually want to introduce or create a large umbrella to block the sun. These people are nuts. The concept of solar radiation modification is basically not, it's been viewed as fanciful rather than realistic solution to climate change, like giant space mirrors, and it's gaining credibility though because of the climate reports. Everybody thinks the climate's going badly, so we think that the world is going to end, so we have to come up with some really crazy way to save it by making the earth cooler. Not really a good idea. So they basically are now saying we need to regulate the industry. Pretty true. I think that's true. And the one that might just have a decisive impact on the world's ability to combat climate change. Or maybe we just don't want people dumping CO2 in the atmosphere. For a little as $1, you can dim the sun just a tiny bit to save the planet. That's the investor's pitch. That's the promise sold by a startup called Make Sunsets. Your dollar will pay the founder to drive a Winnebago RV into the hills in 4 hours outside of half an hour outside of Saratoga, California, to release a balloon loaded with, get this, sulfur dioxide, a pollutant normally spewed by volcanic eruptions. He has 1,000 paying customers, or should I say dupes, into low balloon will burst, and he hopes the balloon will burst in the atmosphere, releasing particles that will block sunlight and cool the planet. The idea is ridiculous. And the fact that he got 1,000 people to give him $1 is even scarier. But he's actually taking sulfur dioxide, which is a very big greenhouse gas, and he's put it in balloons, and how is he shooting them up in the atmosphere? The ice and sun blocking activities, which aren't approved by anybody, any government on the planet, aren't illegal under California law, which is surprising because so many things are. But rather, they call it solar geothermal geoengineering, and it's been the subject of many science fiction stories. And it could spark real wars. This is very scary. And now it's becoming a private energy. The Make Sunsets has raised more than $1 million. This guy with the Winnebago RV in Saratoga, California, and has sold more than $100,000 of cooling credits to customers this year. There's got to be regulation. And also, a better funded competitor called Stardust has raised $75 million to help dim the sun. What are they, nuts? And they want to basically develop a more sophisticated than balloons, sophisticated geoengineering method that will be ready to launch by the end of the decade, although its founders won't deploy the technology unless the government says it's okay to. Opponents say profit-seeking companies are really dangerously messing with our environment, and I don't understand how these people get money. I mean, this is insanity. Don't we know that dimming the sun isn't a good idea? And isn't the whole notion that the world will end when the sun the sun crashes into us or the sun goes out? I mean, I've heard a lot of different theories about how the end of the world will happen, but one of them is when the sun doesn't exist anymore, neither will humanity or mankind or the earth or any of it. So dimming the sun seems like a strange and somewhat dim idea, and it's terrifying that people are actually buying into it. But it's not surprising because we bought into the climate change stuff for a long time too. This is just the latest iteration. I'm Dr. Katherine Johnson, your host on my new YouTube channel, The KJ Show, with me, Dr. KJ, and I'll be right back.
Author, radio show host, and coach John M. Hawkins reveals strategies to help gain perspective, build confidence, find clarity, achieve goals. John M. Hawkins' new book, Coached to Greatness, Unlock Your Full Potential with Limitless Growth, published by iUniverse. Hawkins reveals strategies to help readers accomplish more. He believes the book can coach them to greatness. Hawkins says that the best athletes get to the top of their sport with the help of coaches, mentors, and others. He shares guidance that helps readers reflect on what motivates them, rediscover and assess their core values, philosophies, and competencies, find settings that allow them to be the most productive, and track their progress towards accomplishing goals. Did you know that your beliefs create your entire reality, but it's the subconscious beliefs that do most of the creating? Belief shifter and life coach Shiraz can help you identify those limiting beliefs and eliminate them, often in a single session.
Like, it was almost instant. Like, I had relief right away.
Creating better health, relationships, careers, and finances. Let Shiraz help you step out of safety and into awareness.
Definitely something's happening. It's like a flow inside. It feels good.
Whether in person or online, Shiraz provides personal coaching, Belief shifting. Visit Shiraz at energeticmagic.com or call 416-529-7429. Energetic Magic. Find your greater happiness. Be well. Be aware. Be magical.
Hello and welcome back to the KJ Show on my new YouTube channel with me, Dr. Catherine Johnson or Dr. KJ. And so the sun dimming is really not a good idea, but I actually have some more examples from Europe where this geothermal network system is working and it's been demonstrated to be successful. So this is gives me even more hope that maybe we will have some radical ideas in the United States and this can be a good solution. So in Northern Ireland, the first picture is basically this is a city, not where the housing, not where it is, but this is the only picture they had of the city of Randallstown housing complex in Ireland is making geothermal heat pumps. They're installing it in their multifamily housing units. These are, again, income qualified or low income homes, people who have very high electric and gas bills. They're putting it in, and their people are seeing the difference in their electric bill. It goes down dramatically. They're actually using it to provide affordable energy for those living in, they call it social housing. It's basically multifamily housing funded by the government. The investment was commissioned by the Rural Housing Association and implemented by a company called Daily Renewables. They want to have affordability, a big topic right now, and sustainability. What a concept. Let's bring these two together. To offer low-cost heating and cooling to the complex's 9 apartments, a communal geothermal heat pump was installed, extracting the heat from the earth and distributing it to the different households. The company is committed to making a positive impact on the environment by designing and building homes that not only meet the highest standards of comfort and style, but also reduce energy consumption. This is a philosophy that I've been promoting for my entire career. They reduce energy consumption, providing our tenants with healthier and more cost-effective homes, according to the CEO, Stephen Fisher of the Rural Housing Association. The geothermal system is 300 to 400% more efficient, absolutely, than typical gas or oil boilers, so costs are down, and oh, by the way, carbon emissions go down too. Randallstown's success can be an inspiration for other affordability housing action plan and alleviating many European struggles to be able to pay their bills while the energy crisis looms due to the Ukrainian-Russian war. For the inhabitants of Randallstown housing complex, the system is a complete success. It's easy to use, significantly reduces costs, and according to one of the residents, Mr. Burns, energy bills were cut up to less than half of what they were. This is actually a solution that works. Why has it taken so long to get there? And thank goodness we have examples in Europe. But there's another one too. The next one is actually a place I was visiting this summer, St. Paul, Barcelona. This is a beautiful hospital complex. It's also the largest Art Nouveau complex in the world, I think. It used to be a hospital, and now it's sort of a medical center teaching place, and you can walk around. It is absolutely gorgeous. The Art Nouveau is amazing. And it's a cultural landmark for the city of Barcelona. St. Paul Hospital started off as a welfare hospital in the 15th century and was converted to a modern hospital complex in the 1930s. It's also known as a city within a city. It's absolutely true. It has over 13 hectares occupying 9 blocks in Barcelona's district, and it's a UNESCO World Heritage Site. It is also absolutely gorgeous. If you ever go back to Barcelona or go to Barcelona, go there. For the 2009, the site underwent meticulous restoration to become a museum and cultural center. And throughout the process, they also decided to keep with their sustainability commitments and install geothermal energy for heating and cooling into the St. Paul Hospital. What a concept. So they were going to renovate the hospital anyway, and the grounds and the campus. So let's put in geothermal and let's create a geothermal network. It installed the largest geothermal production complex in Southern Europe, 400 wells, different depths, approaching 120 meters, some of them, powered geothermal heat pumps across the buildings, and save over 30% of the electricity consumption compared to conventional. 30% reduction. They also led to a reduction of 4,200 megawatts a year and 486 tons of CO2 per year. That's a significant. Now, if you're really talking about wanting to make a difference in reducing energy consumption, and also if you think about greenhouse gas emissions as something you care about, this is actually a solution. The energy savings earned the monument 6 LEED certifications and environmental and all kinds of distinctions and awards because it's been verified that it actually does save energy and, oh, by the way, lowers costs at the same time. This is why I loved working with the geothermal heat pumps. The other interesting thing is there's another really interesting place is in Portugal. The last picture. This is a beautiful island vacation, Algarve, Portugal. It's basically known for hotels and tourism and beaches and landscape, and it's a very tourist destination in Portugal. I would love to go there. They also have a luxurious apartments and a five-star hotel, and the tourism if message that sort of goes with sustainability and innovation. So they decided to actually install geothermal heat networks there too. As a pioneer project in continental Portugal, Alhambra Algarve is using a geothermal heat pump to ensure local green heat year round for space heating, hot water heating, and the complex's swimming pools. Another great use of geothermal energy. They said during the summer, the geothermal system provides clean cooling, an important need in one of Portugal's hottest regions. The geothermal system has a heating capacity of 2.5 megawatts, which is quite a big one, and capacity of cooling of 1.3 megawatts, making it the largest installation in the Iberian Peninsula, which includes Spain and Portugal. It was the intent of the building eco-friendly resort, respecting the region's sensitive ecosystem, and they wanted to basically say, we're going to do it in a responsible and sustainable way, and we're going to put in geothermal heat pumps and network. This is a first of its kind project in Portugal with the potential for developing shallow geothermal. Not all geothermal loops have to be 120 meters down. They can go as shallow as 6 feet deep and still have the same success rate. And the other thing is geothermal works really well in sand, in beach fronts. They tested it in Florida, and it was really interesting. They've had very successful geothermal heat pump associations and installations north of Florida, the Panhandle. So the point is that this actually shows the capability for geothermal to be put not just in lands that have to drill really deep ones, but also in places that are coastal. They can also have heating and cooling, and using the swimming pool using it to heat the swimming pool, it makes as much sense in Portugal as it does using geothermal to melt snow melt in Colorado. I mean, it's a very interesting idea, and I wanted to sort of share these three actual proven installations that have been up and running for a few years. So this is not just some pie in the sky idea that just came to somebody. This has actually been vetted, and it's been researched, and it's been demonstrated. And if you can save energy and also, I care about the planet, reduce emissions, of course, that's a good thing. But you can also reduce your heating and cooling and air and water costs. This really helps people that need it the most, the low income communities, especially, who I care, deeply about. So I think that I wish the multifamily housing units in America had some guidance and direction to how can we replace our old outworn boiler systems and put in geothermal heat pumps and network them and link them, because that's a much longer lasting system. The pipes last over 40, 50 years. The units last at least 25 years, the units themselves. And it basically is a very reliable system, much more than what we have currently in most of our low income housing around the country. So I think it's exciting. I don't always want to be a naysayer. So when I find a great topic about a new technology that actually will work, I'm so thrilled that we're really actually trying to do it. And I'm proud of Eversource in Massachusetts for being brave and trying it out. I'm Dr. Katherine Johnson, your host. You're watching The KJ Show with me, Dr. KJ, and I'll be right back.
Are you struggling to care for elderly parents or a spouse? Do you wonder if being a caregiver is making you sick? Are you worried about taking time off work to care for elderly parents and balance work, life, and caregiving? Has caregiving become exhausting and emotionally draining? Are you an aging adult who wants to remain independent, but you're not sure how? I'm Pamela D. Wilson. Join me for the Caring Generation radio show for caregivers and aging adults, Wednesday evenings, 6 Pacific, 7 Mountain, 8 Central, and 9 Eastern, where I answer these questions and share tips for managing stress, family relationships, health, well-being, and more. Podcasts and transcripts of The Caring Generation are on my website, PamelaDWilson.com, plus my caregiving library, online caregiver support programs, and programs for corporations interested in supporting working caregivers. Help, hope, and support for caregivers is here on The Caring Generation and PamelaDWilson.com.
What if there were a super tiny device that could diagnose the brain and is smaller than a single human hair? What if you could see inside the brain to help an epilepsy patient during surgery or to help the fight against Parkinson's disease? Dr. Patricia Broderick is proud to announce the Broderick Probe, a biomedical and electronic breakthrough. Imagine a probe to help with the understanding and potential cure of brain-related diseases. To learn more, listen live to the Easy Sense radio show with host Dr. Broderick. And to help support the Broderick Foundation, please go to easysense.com and learn how, with your help, we can fight these horrific brain disorders. That's easysense.com to learn more and help support the Broderick Foundation.
And welcome back to the KJ Show with Dr. KJ. That's me. I'm your host, Dr. Katherine Johnson. And I always like to end my show with something fun. And so this week, I have now relocated back to where I used to live when I was in my adolescence, to Winter Park, Florida, for my father's job. And but it's actually one of the sweetest, coolest places there is. And I really love it because, one, it has all these wonderful museums, including this one, which is the Charles Hosmer Morse Museum, which, if you Morse code, that money, and Fairbanks Motors, that money, actually went to his great granddaughter who married a former student of Louis Comfort Tiffany and created the Morse Museum. The Tiffany Museum was created because Hugh McCain was an artist who studied with Louis Comfort Tiffany and was actually able to, after his home burned down in Oyster Bay, Long Island, went and rescued all these treasures that were Tiffany's personal favorites. Now, you think Tiffany, you may think it's the jewelry company. It's the same family. But because Tiffany was able to have those connections, he also studied stained glass and he loved Art Nouveau. But he also loved the fact that art needed to be in everyday items, vases, picture frames, lamps, are very famous, windows. So this is one example. He did a Columbia World Fair in 1894, I believe, 1893 World's Fair. He did this chapel all in Tiffany art, and it's in this museum. And they have beautiful. This is a baptistry. There's another picture of the next one is he did a lot of religious art. So in every beginning of the Christmas season for the last 40 years or so, it's been that the art museum will actually take windows that have been under lock and key, hidden away in their storehouses, and actually going into the park. And they take these windows that are from churches that were, had commissioned stained glass windows for people that were chapels, whether it was nuns or people were doing stained glass windows for their churches in Massachusetts, or they were beautiful windows. My favorite is one where it looks like God or Santa Claus and the baby Jesus are sort of hanging out together. But there's also one of Hagar and Ishmael, which I thought was really nice to the Muslims community. And it's just, so basically you go down to Park Avenue in Winter Park, it's a big park, and you walk around and the choir is singing Christmas songs, and you go see Tiffany art that you don't get to see any other time of year. And it's free. And so there's all kinds of crowds, and people in Winter Park tend to do things quite posh. So there's, wine and cheese and charcuterie and real, it's not picnics like paper plates and towels. No. It's china and and silver on beautiful tablecloths, which is very Winter Park too. But it seems appropriate given the fact that it is Tiffany art in the park. And I just love the fact that Tiffany wanted everybody to have access to art. That's one of the reasons he got into this whole nouveau idea of making things accessible and beautiful. And so it is, but bringing it again, taking it one step further and bringing out these treasures from these church windows, stained glass windows that have been sort of forgotten about, and bringing them out and letting the crowd see for free this beautiful testimony to not only Louis Comfort Tiffany's brilliance in stained glass art, but also bringing art to the people, bringing art and making it more realistic. And that's why I love Art Nouveau, because it's so beautiful and it's also approachable. It's accessible. I don't understand modern art. My daughter does. I don't. But the point is, I just thought it'd be really fun, since we are talking about St. Paul, which is also Art Nouveau, tied in nicely. So I'm happily back in Winter Park, my old hometown. And I loved going to the Christmas in the park last week. And Winter Park has all kinds of fun Christmas activities. We had a parade on Saturday and a pancake breakfast, and it's really fun to be back home. So happy holidays. I will be back next week, and then I'll be taking a bit of a break until the new year. Have a great week. Thanks again for watching. You've been watching the KJ Show with me, Dr. Catherine Johnson, on my new YouTube channel. Have a great week. Bye.
This has been The KJ Show. Tune in next week as Catherine shares her insights to current changes in the energy industry while drawing on her experience as an energy efficiency consultant for the past 30 years, right here on The KJ Show.